Okay, so obviously I'm not an expert in investment. I honestly, before this journey, I didn't know any single thing about investment. Like I said, we only started this company in February of this year, which is crazy because it's only been roughly 11 months or sorry, or less than that, 10 months actually. And it's amazing to see the transformation that we've done so far. But that's the whole goal. Investment is not about, well, okay, so you're doing okay, why do you need money? That's not what it's about. The investment is about, you need to pour as much money as you possibly can get into a company and see if you could rapidly accelerate it as fast as you possibly can. And that means that you need injection of capital in order to make that happen. There's no other way to make it work, right? So that's what we're trying to accomplish here. So that's the premises of why we're actually accepting money. I could easily go out there and find the next client and make a sale, and find the next client and make a sale, and pay myself, and that's perfectly fine and others. But if you're gonna like quickly grow up a company and take it from 0 to 10 million in 2 years time, like that's kind of the pace, right? Or zero to, in America it'd be like 0 to 100 million in 3 years time. Like that's the kind of rapid pace that you're dealing with. I don't know if I could get the company to that big, but I'm certainly gonna try. So anyway, what I want to do with this video here is just give you a quick introduction to how investors work from my perspective, so at least you kind of understand, and I'll put some reading materials inside of there, and that will be sort of like a guide for you, and you'll be able to be a little bit more educated on how the process works. All right.
All right, so what I'm going to do with this video is I'm basically going to give you like a whirlwind tour of one, what we're doing in terms of, well, one, how investors work. That's the first thing I'm going to do. And then secondly, I'm going to talk about our strategy and how we intend to get investment from sort of a larger community. So bear with me. This is going to be sort of a little bit of a longer video, but a kind of a quick whirlwind express tour to answer two very fundamental questions of how investors work and what basically we're going to do. So the first thing you need to do is I'm going to just explain how business really work in sort of like two different sectors. So and I'm going to do multiple diagrams just for the rest. So we're going to put business. And by the way, my handwriting is going to be terrible. Like it's just about just kind of illustrating the thing. So we're going to do BUSINESS because I'm a horrible handwriter. So there's two different types of business that we'll see. Okay. One is sort of the traditional business, TRADITIONAL, okay, traditional business, and then one is the sort of, we'll say new school business, new school, new, NEWSCHOOL, okay, and this is probably one of the most important concepts to understand when you're thinking about investment or whatever. So originally, investments or businesses, sort of mom and pop shop or like a typical service business, the way how they work is, you got a guy here, business owner, ambitious guy, kind of like myself, interested in doing something. So you got a super great idea. Basically, we'll make this a light bulb, right? So you got a super great idea. He says, okay, I need some money to do this. So the way how you would do this normally, you would go to a bank, right? You would go to a bank, and the bank would basically have a manager inside. The manager says, yeah, okay, you need some money, here's some money, okay? And he would give him some cash, and then he would go business. Or you would, potentially get a say, hey, I need a partner. So you'll get a partner might have some money, and then you'll go build the business that way. And then, they go off and they kind of make their dreams come true. Or maybe you just, go to family and friends as well, kind of like what we're doing right now, right? So those are the ways I think. But the principle here to understand is that what he normally does is he goes and he, makes a sale to a customer, okay, get some money, all right, and then hire some employees, okay, hire some employees, okay. Then he goes, he makes another sale, get some more money, hire some more employees, right, and rinse and repeat, okay. I'm over exaggerating and oversimplifying it, but basically that's the traditional way of doing things. You go to an institution, financial institution, you get some money, and then you basically try to make a sale, you get some money, and you hire some people, and you just kind of keep going in that sort of pattern as you go along, right? So that's the traditional way. The new school, and when I say new school, this is mostly the way of building businesses that's not necessarily familiar to a lot of people, but this has been around for ages on end. But it's just what's happening is in the last like 20 years, 10 years for sure, things have evolved in a way where technology has become the dominant player and force in investors deciding how they invest in companies. So things kind of transform a little bit. And so what the new school way focuses on is how can we, sort of turn that model, the old school way of doing business, on its head, and by using technology, right? So what happens here is that you get a guy, same guy, super bright idea, ambitious, whatever, wants to build something great. So he has a brilliant idea. You're going to try to do a light bulb a little bit better, okay? So he has a brilliant idea. And that idea that he says, hey, I want to do this. So what does he do? Instead of going to the bank in the traditional way, he actually goes ahead and most likely these people are technical, or they have somebody, or if they're not technical, then they have a technical founder, right? Or a technical partner. But the bottom line is they go off and they build the minimum viable product, is what it's called, MVP. But basically what that's saying is the least amount of features that they possibly could get away with, the quickest way that they could possibly build that. And that means honestly a bunch of hack things together, not hack in the sense of, like hacking, but like just a mismatch of features. Some of it doesn't work properly, whatever, but just good enough that they can actually go and try to convince somebody, hey, can you use my product and see if it works? And then the person uses the product, and then they get some feedback, okay? And then they might, make some improvements of it. Maybe they add a new module or something like that. They make some improvement, and they go and they get a few more trial people, okay? So they get enough trial people here, and what they do is they get a few of them and they say, hey, it's actually, we have something here, right? So at least they do this in the most bootstrap way possible. Bootstrap is a term used to describe, like, you just, they're using their own money and they're just kind of promoting this product in any which way they possibly can with the limited money that they have, okay? So now that they did this, the next thing, this is where sort of it gets a little interesting, because this is what happens now. So what they do is they go to sort of an investor. I'm going to use another color to say an investor. This is the money guy, so we'll use him in green, okay? And what they do is they go to an investor and they say, hey, by the way, hey, investor guy, we built this product here. We built it, and you might actually be interested in it. So I tell you what, we actually have some customers, as you can see, all right? And the product is really crappy, but we have some customers right now. Right, so the point is that, the investor comes along, sees that the user has sort of an interesting product. And so he says, okay, well, what can we do here? And again, I'm oversimplifying this. This is not by any means, a full-on lesson in investment and how it works and all that jazz. This is just sort of high-level concepts here. So the guy says, well, we have a few customers on the platform, and based on this, we're gonna try to get something. So the investor says, okay, fair enough, I'll give you some money. And without going into all the details, this guy decides there's a value to what he's created so far. So in this particular case, and in the accelerator world, which we'll talk about in a bit, standard is like 500,000 or 1 mil, all right, or 2 mil, like something like that. So they put a value on the company, and from that value, the guy says, okay, I'm going to give you, say, $100,000 for 10% of the company for 1 mil, right? That's sort of thing. 10% as a percentage, right? And so he says, okay, takes that $100,000 and he goes off and hires a few more people, and with that money, and once he hires a few more people, then he continues to build. The goal here now is to take whatever he's already done, refine it a little bit, and then replicate it in multiple markets as fast as you possibly can, and get it from a $1 million company to a $10 million company. So you could go out and raise another round. So from this 100,000, maybe the next round you might do is a $1 million, right? A $1 million round, or $2 million. It just depends on where you are. So the point here is that the first round of investment might be an angel investor, ANGEL. The second round of investor, you call it a Series A, SERIES, Series A. And then you got a Series B, right? And then Series C, and so on and so on. And the whole goal is to either sell the company, be acquired, or get to an IPO stage, IP. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in further down the line. I just wanted to kind of give you some ideas. But the point that I'm making here is that the new way and the sort of the technology way of doing things is you build a super minimum viable product. You test it out with a couple of sort of early stage adopters, people that are like really interested in your technology at the early stage, and then you try to blow it up as fast as you possibly can in things. So, you know, in America, you're looking at something like, you know, people are trying to get companies from, you know, zero to $100 million in, you know, 2 to 3 years time. Like that's the kind of growth level that we're talking about here, like super fast, aggressive thing. And you just can't do that type of business by doing sort of in this traditional way of things. It's just not going to work out. All right. So that's what I mean by new school, old school kind of business. So now that you have a little bit of understanding about that, let's talk about sort of growth opportunities and just some examples of some of the other companies. So, you know, a few examples in this particular case would be like Uber, U-B-E-R. You know, and Uber, you know, started out as a black car service, B-L-A-C-K, car, C-A-R, which means that it's basically a limousine service, right? You could just use your mobile phone, and you could order a black cab. And once they finished that, then they went to an investor and they got some money, and they basically said, hey, this black car service people definitely need it. And then they transformed from a black car to like regular cars. Right? These were regular cars. And then from that, basically what they did is they took those regular cars and they deployed them across multiple cities, across different geographic regions across the world, right? So that's sort of an example. And now, you know, Uber's worth, I think, their last evaluation at this particular point, because they're being bought by, or at least Tencent is trying to buy some shares now. They're at like $49 billion, which is insane, right? Actually, that's coming down from an evaluation of $69 billion. So it's just stupid. And they're not even a public company as yet. They've just gone through multiple rounds of funding. So what's happening now is the investors that are at the early stage, I think there's even one success story where one of the investors got his the school to invest $15,000 or something like that in the company, and now I think they're cashing out something like over, I forgot the number, but it was basically something like, I think 20 million or something like that. I forgot what the return is at some stage, but the point is that, you know, like there's huge potential in sort of these growth companies. Another company that I was interested in is Airbnb, AIRBNB. Very interesting story. You should totally read up on it if you don't know any single thing about them. And the way how they basically started, like, you know, they have this whole idea of basically getting their, they had this idea of, you know, like getting to bed, and sometimes you go to New York and you're trying to get a hotel and the prices were just ridiculous, and they're like, oh, what if we could just rent somebody's couch for the night, right? And that was kind of how they started out. And you know, like in the early days, what they actually did was went house to house. First they did it themselves, so they kind of proved the model by doing it themselves. So literally just have people come to their house and do it, almost like a bread and breakfast type of deal. And then once they got some traction, then they got other people to do it. So it's like, hey, you know, would you like to rent out your couch for a bit? And they would literally go door to door. And what they realized earlier on is that one of the problems was that photos was a huge problem for people, because they weren't posting proper photos. So what they did, they actually went out and hired a professional photographer, and he basically took pictures of each house individually and put up like really awesome photos, and that attracted a lot of users, because like, oh, I could do, you know, I could get a place to stay for this like super cheap kind of deal. And then, you know, eventually that kind of took off, and they just manually went city to city like that, and kind of evolved until they got to it says where they are, right? And my favorite company is Tesla altogether. If anybody doesn't know the Tesla story, just go read up on it. Elon Musk has struggled so many times on multiple levels. You know, took all his personal money from PayPal and basically poured it into Tesla, and almost failed multiple times. and just got saved. At one point, he was in desperation and literally went to Larry Page's house and said, "Hey man, like my company's going down. Like I need you to buy it out." And and they were, I think, like the next day or something like that. Like basically, they got an investment, and that's what saved them. So the point is that there's big wins, but there's huge risk involved in sort of this model. But the argument is that the wins outweigh sort of the losses, and that's just a game, right? I can't say that we're going to be any of these companies. That's not what I'm even trying to give here. I'm just trying to give some examples of companies that have kind of done that rapid acceleration of growth and got to a point. I mean, 5 years ago, and nobody's ever heard of Airbnb. They've been around for a while, but like in mainstream, even in Canada, like nobody really in the sort of like regular space have heard, or even Uber for that matter, or Tesla probably even, right? A company I like to compare ourselves to is Shopify, though. So Shopify. Shopify, and the reason why is because I like his story. I like his story, and not only do I like his story is also closer to home. It's a Toronto company, Toronto, and he really, really struggled in the early days. So if you don't know much about his story. So Shopify, just those who don't know, Shopify is an e-commerce platform. It allows you to basically go online and sell your products very easily. So if you have, like, I don't know, a bunch of watches that you want to sell, you could go on Shopify, sign up for an account for like $29, put up your watches, and then sell them. And that's really like a super fast, simple solution. And they really solve a growing pain at that particular time. The way how this guy solved the problem was that he actually wanted to just sell snowboards. Like he literally just wanted to sell some cool snowboards. And what happened is long story short, is he went and checked out a bunch of different platforms, and they just didn't have the features that he actually wanted. And so he decided he was actually a programmer. So he built his own platform. And so that was sort of his minimum viable product. And then soon enough, he got a partner, and they just started building. And they basically locked themselves away for like 2 years and just kind of built this product. And then we went to investors. But there's one thing I want to mention about this story is that they got a hard time raising money in Canada. Because Canada, it's very interesting, but Canadian investors are so risk averse that they tend not to, they want to see so much traction because they just want to be stable, right? Whereas, and this is not 100% true, but it's a generalized statement to really depict what's happening. Whereas the US guys, they're all about the risk, right? Big risk, high rewards. That's kind of like their game. And so between the two, there's huge contrast. So anyway, so Lucas actually went out and he went to Canada investors, and they really get much out of there. But then it went down to the States and got a lot of traction, and basically came back. And now it's a proud Canadian company that's on the U.S. stock market, yada yada yada. But in the early days, there's quite a few restrictions. If you read up on that story, it's very interesting. I don't know how much they publicize it, but what's cool about this is that this guy that was in Shopify, the network of people that I'm in right now are the people that actually invested in Shopify. In fact, one of the mentors that I have actually invested in Shopify, which is cool. So they're very, very familiar with these guys, the Shopify guys and stuff. And that's what's cool, because you don't, like, you hear a lot about these companies, but it's also cool to know the people behind them, the people that help them to get there. And those are the people that don't necessarily get much recognition. But they play a huge part in these companies' evolution. And what's cool is that the network of people that I'm in right now, I'm actually starting to meet those people, which is pretty impressive. So I'm pretty proud about that. Right. So anyway, so Shopify, I'm going to put a link to all of these stuff, by the way, so you can kind of read up on these companies, just for your own personal FYI type of thing. But Shopify is a great company, and they came back together and get the deal. So let's talk about the other thing I want to talk about here is the stages of investment. The stages of investment. So first, there's just you, okay? You, in this case, means the guy that's coming up with the idea. And in this particular case, it's literally me, okay? I'm the guy that has the idea, right? Me and, 100,000 other startup companies out there, okay? But there's me. And when you start, you own 100% of your company and your ID. Okay, and that's just how it is. All right, and then what you do is you build something, build a product, right, which we talked about before, right? So you build some sort of cool product, and then you try to get other people to buy into the product. So other people might buy in terms of like maybe you might get a second partner, right? And you might give that partner a share. So now maybe you give, I don't know, maybe you give that partner 40% of the company because they have some skills that you don't necessarily need, and you control 60% of it, right? So that might be sort of like a first step in this process. And then what you do is you go to like early stage angels and friends and family, right? So angel, ANGELS, angels, friends and family, FRENDS, and family, right? And get them to invest. Yeah. So you might start with friends and family first, right? Because they're the closest to your network, and so you might say, okay, you know what? Hey guy, give me $20,000. I'll give you 5% of the company, or something like that, right? And then that's how that works. And then you go to angel investors, and you ask them for maybe $100,000, and a group of them might combine together, and that might be for whatever the percentage is. Let's say 20% or something like that, right? So the point is that you 20%. So you kind of just evolve from there. Now, once you get to those stages, the next level, right? So this should be like, this is like stage 1, this is stage 2, this is stage 3. So the next level is VCs. VC stands for venture capitalist firm. And when you're with these guys, now you're into the big player era, and it's a shark game at this particular point. It really, really is a shark game, because VCs, they want to see growth fast, but there's also a problem here, and I want you to understand this very carefully. I won't go into too much detail, but the way how VCs work in very simple English is that they get like, let's say $100 million, okay? $100 million, large fund. And what they do is they basically have, that's a pool for them. And what they try to do is find startups and share that pool, that piece of the pie with a bunch of different startups, okay? So they get a bunch of different startups and try to take that pie. But the problem with VCs altogether and the way how they run their business is that they actually know, based on statistics, that a lot of these companies that they're actually invested in, so let's just say that they give each company like $20 million each, right? $20 million. I don't know if this is 5 or that, but let's just say, $20 million thing. They wouldn't actually do it. They would actually keep a piece for themselves. So it's not all the money goes out to all the company. They keep like $20 million for themselves altogether. Okay. But the point here is that, they give each company a piece of the pie. And then what happens is they know that these two companies, purely on statistics, just won't make it. They don't know which two, but they knew like, two of them won't make it. They also know that one of these companies inside of here, like this guy here, will start a company, it'll get to a certain level and it just won't go anywhere. So one thing, right? And then that kind of leaves these two. But this puts enormous pressure on the remaining set of founders that are actually doing something to succeed. And what happens is that they put so much pressure on these companies that you really have to keep up with this pressure. And it's very important that you understand it earlier on, because if you can't handle that pressure, you will fail. All right. And you're going to break down personal problems, all that kind of stuff. So it's a real fundamental problem. But the point is that what they're trying to do, what they're hoping for, is that one of these companies will get to make, let's just say, they'll make their return. So they'll make something like, let's say, $120 million back for them. Let's just say, right? Again, I'm oversimplifying this entire thing, but I'm just trying to think. So they make $120 million because they have to make money on this, and they have to make a profit, basically, right? Else it's not worth it. So that they could give back some money to the people that gave them this money, which normally are like mutual funds or, all different types of things. So for example, like the credit unions and all these kind of places, right? But it's interesting. But the point is that so VCs, the point is, right, if you're going to take money from VC, you have to really, really understand the game properly in order to sort of gain some like understand and profit from what they're trying to do. So it's a gamble, and it's a big gamble, but again, huge payoff. But that's just sort of different stages. So I'm not going to belabor this point too much. The only reason I wanted to give you this information is so that you can go. There's a really great article. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention, this is the Shopify website, and this is the, there's a how to Shopify, how to like just a quick overview of Shopify and how they made it. And what they basically did is they raised 200,000 first from family and friends, and then they raised 250,000 from angel investors, and then they kind of try to scale the business from there, right? But so this article here is a really, really great article that explains how the process of investment works and how this thing out. So from a startup perspective, and for anybody interested in investing, and it actually does a great job in explaining visually the pool of money and dilution and all these kind of concepts that exist in here, which is like, as the pool as more money people come into the company, your share that gets diluted. So highly encourage anybody that's interested in this space to go read this article. I'm going to put this inside of the video as well, just so you can actually see that. So